Megumi is raised by Geto instead of Gojo, and because of that, he starts making very different decisions, and that's enough to change the entire story. This all comes down to a single moment. Right before Toji dies, he tells Gojo about his son. In the original timeline, that information stays with Gojo, but in this version, he shares it with Geto instead, and that one decision quietly changes everything that follows. Because Geto doesn't hear this as a passing detail, to him, it confirms something about the world he's already starting to question, and the more he thinks about it, the more it stops feeling like coincidence. So instead of ignoring it, he acts. He tracks down the Fushiguro house and finds Megumi alongside his stepsister Tsumiki, and that's where the situation immediately becomes more complicated, because Tsumiki has no cursed energy. And the moment Geto realizes that, his reaction isn't loud or emotional, it's quiet and far colder. But Megumi notices. Even at 6 years old, he understands exactly what kind of man is standing in front of him, and before Geto can decide anything, he steps in and sets a condition. He'll go. He'll do whatever he's told, but only if his sister is taken care of. And for a moment, Geto considers it, not out of compassion, but because he understands value. The 10 Shadows technique is too important to lose, so he agrees, accepting a compromise he would normally reject. Tsumiki is moved somewhere safe, funded by Geto's group, and kept alive at a distance, but never acknowledged, never treated as family, and never truly accepted. To Geto, she isn't someone worth saving. She's simply the condition required to keep Megumi with him. From here, things don't immediately fall apart. They begin to shift. Geto leaves Jujutsu High and continues with his plans, but this time, he doesn't do it alone. He raises Megumi himself, training him to grow stronger and refine his cursed energy while slowly shaping how he sees the world. Megumi grows up alongside Mimiko and Nanako, surrounded by people who owe everything to Geto's cause, and over time, that perspective starts to take hold. To Megumi, Geto isn't a criminal, he's the one who saved him, and Gojo is the one who took everything away. By December 24th, 2017, Geto's plan is finally set into motion. Megumi is already using the 10 Shadows with far greater control, though he still can't call on Mahoraga. And just like before, Yuta easily overwhelms Geto before Gojo arrives to finish it. Megumi sees it happen, not from a distance, but right in front of him. And for a moment, everything stops, but he doesn't break. He summons Nue and escapes, already understanding something important. This fight was never his to win. Just like before, Kenjaku takes the opportunity to claim Geto's body and his cursed spirit manipulation. But when Megumi sees him again, he knows something is wrong. Geto is dead. He saw it. So whatever is standing in front of him now isn't him. Kenjaku doesn't explain everything, only enough to make Megumi understand the situation and offers him a choice: join him or stand alone. Megumi doesn't trust him, but this isn't about trust. He knows he can't take down Gojo alone, and if that's the goal, there's only one path forward. So he accepts. From here, things don't completely change, but they start to drift, because without Megumi at Jujutsu High, no one is sent to Yuji's school, and that absence matters more than it should. Yuji still encounters the cursed spirit. He still nearly dies, and with no one there to guide him, he makes the same desperate choice. He consumes Sukuna's finger. The power is enough. He destroys the cursed spirit, regains control, and gets his friends to safety. But there's no explanation waiting for him. No one to tell him what he just became. So when he leaves the hospital, he's completely in the dark. And that's when Gojo finds him. Drawn in by Sukuna's presence, he quickly realizes what's happened and pushes Yuji into the same test as before. A 10-second sparring match with Sukuna. The outcome doesn't change. Sukuna still loses. Yuji still regains control. And Gojo still makes the same decision, bringing him into Jujutsu High. At first, everything seems to fall back into place, but once they reach the detention center, the difference becomes impossible to ignore. Because Megumi isn't there. Without him, the mission falls apart quickly. Yuji and Nobara are both pushed to their limits, and for the first time, there's no one there to stabilize the situation. Yuji tells Nobara to run and find help, buying time as he faces the finger bearer alone. And just before he's overwhelmed, Sukuna takes control. He destroys the cursed spirit, consumes the finger, and just like before, he could have taken everything from Yuji. But he doesn't, because the one person Sukuna found interesting isn't here. So instead of pushing further, he lets Yuji live. And just like that, the story quietly shifts again. It doesn't take long for things to go wrong. Gojo still overwhelms Jogo, and just like before, Hanami intervenes to pull him out. But the real shift begins when Yuji meets Junpei. Their friendship forms the same way, while Mahito sets everything in motion, planting Sukuna's finger, ultimately leading to Junpei's mother's death. That grief changes him, and before long, Junpei turns and follows Mahito. But Mahito isn't alone. Megumi is there too, sent by Kenjaku to assist and push Yuji into a situation where desperation forces him to rely on Sukuna. When Yuji confronts Mahito, everything unfolds almost the same. Junpei is transformed, his body twisted beyond recognition. Yuji tries to reach him, but before anything can change, Megumi acts. His divine dog strike, killing Junpei instantly. And that's where everything breaks. Yuji demands to know why, and Megumi answers without hesitation. Not out of cruelty, but because to him, the outcome was obvious. Junpei wasn't stable, and leaving him alive would only make things worse. To Megumi, this wasn't murder. It was a necessary decision. Yuji doesn't see it that way, and he attacks both Mahito and Megumi. But facing both of them at once, he's quickly overwhelmed. Nanami arrives soon after, but even with his experience, the situation doesn't turn. Megumi and Mahito are simply too much to handle, and as the fight drags on, Sukuna watches from within Yuji, interested in Megumi, in the way he fights, and in how he decides. Realizing there's no way to win, Nanami holds them off just long enough for Yuji to escape. But the cost is immediate. Mahito kills him, earlier than he ever should have. The aftermath spreads quickly, and Nanami's death shakes Gojo and the rest of Jujutsu High. Because now, Shibuya is coming. Everything moves toward the same incident, but behind the scenes, something has changed. Mimiko and Nanako approach Megumi, and instead of following Kenjaku blindly, they propose something else. Capture Yuji, force Sukuna out, and take control themselves. Megumi listens, and after a moment, he agrees. Not out of trust, but because it aligns with the outcome he wants. Quick pause. Shout out to Darren for subscribing. If you want to be next, comment, "I subbed." Let's continue. And that decision changes everything. It all comes crashing down in Shibuya. Yuji is captured, and one by one, the fingers are forced down his throat. Sukuna awakens, but instead of turning on Jogo, he turns on both of them, Jogo and Megumi. The fight erupts instantly, a brutal 1 versus 2, with Jogo's flames clashing against Sukuna while Megumi pushes his technique further than ever before, and that's when it happens. Megumi summons Mahoraga, but this time, it's different. Because he doesn't lose control, he commands it. Mahoraga obeys him, and for a moment it looks like Sukuna is being pushed back, but that doesn't last. Malevolent Shrine tears through everything, breaking Mahoraga down piece by piece. And Sukuna understands something. Megumi isn't just strong, he's useful, so instead of killing him, he takes him. In an instant, Sukuna closes the distance, forces his mouth open, and feeds him a finger. And just like that, Megumi becomes the vessel. Sukuna leaves the battlefield, returning to Kenjaku just as Gojo is sealed. From there, the world keeps moving, but everything feels off. Mahito still breaks Yuji, Nobara still falls, but now there's no balance left. The culling games begin, and during that time, Sukuna settles into Megumi's body, mastering the 10 shadows, consuming the remaining fingers, and reaching his full power. By the time Gojo is unsealed, it's already too late. Their final battle begins in Shinjuku, Gojo versus Sukuna. The difference is undeniable. Gojo isn't just fighting Sukuna, he's fighting through Megumi. The clash is overwhelming, with domains colliding and techniques pushed to their limits. But the real shift happens inside the domain. Just like before, Sukuna attempts to use Megumi's soul to adapt to unlimited void. But this time, Megumi doesn't resist, because he was never meant to. He wasn't raised to oppose Sukuna, he was raised to oppose Gojo. So instead of breaking, he aligns. Megumi consciously bears the burden of unlimited void, accelerating the adaptation far beyond what should be possible. Gojo doesn't expect it. He believes Megumi will fight back, but he doesn't. And that's when it happens. The world-cutting slash is released earlier than it ever should be, and Gojo falls. But in that final moment, it isn't Sukuna looking down at him. It's Megumi staring back at him, not with rage, but with complete, unwavering certainty. Because Gojo falls so early, Sukuna never reaches his limit and continues fighting at nearly full power. So when the remaining sorcerers step in to challenge him, it isn't a fight, it's a massacre. Even with the strongest fighters working together, they're unable to replicate the pressure Gojo created. And without that, Sukuna is never pushed to the brink. They throw everything at him. Their techniques, their coordination, their final attempts to stop him. And none of it is enough. Kenjaku still falls during the chaos, cut down just like before, but by that point, it no longer matters. Because nothing slows Sukuna down. One by one, the remaining sorcerers are eliminated until there's no one left capable of opposing him. With no resistance remaining, Japan collapses into a cursed wasteland, not ruled by Sukuna, but left to decay under his presence, because he doesn't want control or order. He only wants something to break. So the merger is initiated, not out of necessity, but out of curiosity. He brings it into existence to test its limits, and once it no longer entertains him, he destroys it. At that point, nothing remains that can challenge him, and within it all, Megumi is still there. Not gone, not destroyed, but silent and no longer resisting. With the world reduced to nothing, Sukuna is left with a choice: end it or start again. So instead, he scatters the fingers once more, setting the stage for another era of sorcery, another cycle, and another chance for someone strong enough to challenge him. This version of Megumi destroyed everything, but Yuji, starting with Sukuna's power, might be even worse. Click this video to see how that timeline unfolds, because it doesn't take long for things to fall apart.